That's my race. That's my medal. It's America. You breed me to say I can do anything. Okay, then prove it. I'm going to hold you to it. I can do anything. Okay, then I'm going to do it. Don't tell me I can do anything and say, oh, well, but not that. No. So I got very into it and I got very adamant because at that time, women were doing a lot. And running is good for people. Athleticism is good. Being healthy, it's helpful. People need to get rid of stress. But I wanted to do something unique with my life because I felt like I had kind of screwed up young. That's what I thought. I thought, here I am, I'm already, married and have an annulment by the time I'm 22. And then by the time I'm 23, I'm one of the fastest women runners there is. So, and ironically, Chris, there was a woman in Denver who worked for NBC. She took me to this lady who was a palm reader. She goes, let her read your palm. I'm like, okay, what is this lady? The lady looked at me. I almost fell off the chair. She goes, between the time you're 22 and 23, your life is going to completely change and you will never be the same person again. And once I ran the Boston Marathon, like everything about myself went in the garbage. I was like, I'm not that person. I'm this person. And that's what made a lot of people scared because women we're not supposed to be too strong. We're not supposed to be too opinionated. We're not supposed to be too aggressive. We're not supposed to be too competitive. And I said, let me say something about that. Do you think a mother bear is caring about that when her baby is being come after? We're all mother bears inside. I said, and sometimes if you let that out, there's things that can happen. I'm just saying. It's just kind of this weird thing about being female that I think it's fascinating to me because we all have, different sides. And it was a way for me to exercise or like an exorcism of your deepest fears and hurts and pains or whatever. And that's how sport. And then at the end of it, there was a lot of joy. Like when you win a race, I said, it must be like, giving birth. You're at the finish line. It's so amazing. It's such a great feeling. It's such a feeling of joy and exaltation because you're overcoming yourself. It's a mental and physical mind game of what can you endure. And it's really life. Life is an endurance test. We're all in an Olympic marathon. There's things I said, there's another book I want to write called Everything I Learned About Life. I learned from running the marathon, 26 life lessons. That would be another book I'd like, because you learn a lot as you get into that. Like everything a big lesson for me. And I'm
fascinated. The 1980, you prepared for the 1980 Summer Olympics, actually. And
what was happening was
supposed to happen in Moscow. It was a boycott.
Right. Well, what was happening was right after 1978, when I ran my Boston Marathon, I was sitting on the precipice of a 2-year window to the Olympics. I was in perfect shape. So if I just kept going, I said I could get there. But here's the other caveat. Other women were starting to come in. We were doing 10,000 meter races, 5,000 meter races, and marathon. And when you train for a distance race, there's a specific training for each of those races. So unless you really know what race they're going to put you in, it's a little tricky. So I wanted the marathon to be put in, but we also wanted the 10,000 meter and the 5. So if you have all these women wanting to compete, you would have 3 women to be in each of those events, but they would have to know how to structure their training to peak for that event. And that was very confusing. So I wanted the marathon, but at some point I was like, well, I would do the 10,000, whatever one they would put in, because we wanted to go to the Olympics. But what ended up happening was the politics of Afghanistan, which we're still looking at today, and Jimmy Carter. Now, remember, in America, we don't pay our athletes. You're on your own. Like in Russia and Germany, they're on the dole of the government. So when you're doing it in America, you have to have another job, which I had. I had a job with Pepsi, but my coach was like, they're wearing you out. You're running to all these cities. How are you going to train? I was training in airports. I was training at hotels. I was running all over the place. But it wasn't like the kind of training you would really have if you were really. I did the best I could, and I think I did okay. So, and in those days, it wasn't as scary and crazy as it is today. So, I think they worried about me. This woman's running all over the country by herself, But we didn't have anything to fall back on. So there was nowhere to run. And at that time, Pepsi didn't like the fact that I was living in Colorado. They wanted me to be at their home office in Purchase, which I didn't want to move back to New York. I mean, I had a place there, a coach there, I liked it there. But that was the rule. You're going to move. Okay. And it was a very uncomfortable move for me. They didn't pay me squat. Most of my money was an expense account, which they took incredible care. I mean, I was at 5-star hotels. I was flown first class, but I had no real income. It was like a $15,000 a year job. And I had to, I gave them my life basically, but I wanted, it was a really great experience. You couldn't buy that experience, but at the same time, I didn't know when I went back there, they were going to cancel the Olympics, and in canceling the Olympics, it made me feel a little bit hopeless because I didn't want to be running around the country that's not what I wanted to do.
Yeah, they profited.
They profited a lot. They made a lot of money. They sold more Diet Pepsi in the history of the country, of their company. That my program was called Diet Pepsi Run America Run. I was the person. Here I am. I was their spokesmodel. I was she. And I like this picture because before I ran, I was in the dark. And after I ran, I was completely enlightened. It's my friend took this picture. He was a sports photographer for the Denver Nuggets. And everybody was fascinated with me killing myself. They go, she's killing herself. Okay. The boys all wanted to beat me and I just wanted to get faster. So I wasn't really paying much attention. But, when I got back there, it was such a different time in history. The Olympic Committee had no money, but they were very cheesy if anybody wanted to pay you. So they kind of crippled you, but they wanted you to go to the Olympics. It's very bipolar. It's like nobody knew what to do. And they had all these rules and regulations. If you took like a pair of shoes, you'd be disqualified. It was so stringent. It was so complicated, and you didn't want to do anything wrong. So I had the job, and that was my job. And then I ran separately. And when I ran separately, this is what's really funny. So I ran separately. And when I won, I wasn't running for Pepsi. I was running for me. And they would get mad at me and say, well, you didn't mention Pepsi. I go, well, I don't run for you. They would get all pissed off, I run for me. I'm running for myself. So they wanted to own me and this and that. It was very controlling. But anyway, so we go back and I had to we put on 300 races. We had all these people, all different age groups. It was such a blast. And we graded them against other people in the country with their time and their age. It was done very statistically. We were the beginners of all this statistics with the sport. And then they would have to, at the end of the season, we had a huge event at Pepsi World Headquarters in Purchase, which is right near Greenwich, Connecticut. It was a big estate, their headquarters, where we put on the World Championship. And this is right before they canceled the Olympics. So we fly in all the top runners and the people from our program who had won, all the different age groups. It was a really big party, really big event. It was lovely. A friend of mine from ABC came to film it. And I'm the most proud of this picture. Here I am at the finish of this race. This is my favorite picture. I'm in the best shape of my life right here. And right over here.
Hold it a bit higher if you like. Yeah,
Can you see it?
Yeah, just a bit higher. That's it. Okay. right there.
Okay, so every muscle in my body is like, this is the best shape I am in my life. I had just finished winning that race and training for this race. So I'm on like total high going. And right back here is the president of Pepsi, John Scully. He's over there. So at the end of this race, I came in fifth, but I came in fifth behind other runners who were never going to run in a 10,000 meter race. So we were all kind of bunched in together. Like I said, women had to pick races they could be in to get exposure and to get training. But had the Olympic Committee given us a full series like the men had, we would have all peeled off into different races. And we would have each had berths and a possibility to win a gold, a silver, or a bronze medal. So, any one of those would be fine. And going to the Olympics would have been a cool experience. Okay. So at the end of that race, right after that happened, is when we found out the Olympics was canceled. So we had all these great athletes in the prime of their, and then everything fell out from under it. So it was pretty depressing. And then right after that happened, I kind of lost I didn't really want to do the job. And I came back to Manhasset and started a consulting company called Athletes, which you know about here, my little athlete, feminine version, because I love the French language. And I would always say, I'm a girl, I'm still a girl, I'm still feminine. When you're running, you look like a little deer and, you still want to be feminine. And I said, I'm an athlete, not an athlete. And it's 2 T's, not one. And I started it as a consulting business. And I did coaching at my old high school while I was trying to figure out how we were going to get the Olympic Committee to give us a marathon. I mean, I went into a depression, I will be honest, when everybody did. It was like a horrible time. I was only 25. I thought, I'm never going to come out of this. It took me months. I was so depressed. I think of Michael Phelps. A lot of Olympic athletes have talked about their mental health. I think what happens, you are on such a high level, it's like falling off a cliff. It's like you have to have a purpose or a goal or a something, and when that's kind of taken from you, you feel like you revved yourself up and then you feel kind of like in limbo, So redirect. And I was fortunate to get a job in Manhattan with a company off of Fifth Avenue that was putting on the Legs Mini Marathon. And at that time, that was a hosiery company. And they were going to put on the largest 10,000 meter race for women. And this was like speaking to my heart. I said, let me get involved. And I get involved and we make this thing ginormous. And of course, I knew all the other runners. We all kind of knew each other. And, over time, things would change and everything. And we had 10,000 women run in the event and now ABC, New York, ABC, NBC, and CBS are like a block from Central Park. Nobody showed up. Nobody came to even film it.
Interesting.
It was like it didn't happen. And we were so annoyed. So what happened on that day is we had a world record set by Greta Waitz and they missed it. So then their assignment editors, now Greta Waitz, and now we're getting into running history. If anybody knew about Greta, she was a top runner from Norway and she was brought in and she became the person to beat. So running was taking off globally. People were racing. It was becoming ultra competitive. But I looked at it like American women, including me, had just gone all over the country to put these events on. We, America, are going to get this race in, and we, an American, are going to win that gold medal because I have killed myself, and I'm not going to let anybody, I don't care if they come from Mars, they're not going to win the first gold medal. And again, going back to Frank Shorter, because I wanted it to be an American person. I got this American thing just in my head because I had done so much. I'd given up so much. I'd been through so much. And I feel like I poured so much of my life into it, I didn't want to quit. Now, here it is, a year and a half. Now I haven't been competing. I haven't competed. The Olympics had been canceled. I was back in New York in a depression. I get the job. I'm back in thing, but I'm not physically racing. But I knew all the other people. I kept up on everything that was going on. Okay, so by us putting on the race, we were actually able to get the marathon into the Olympics because it's all about money. It's all about the media. It's all about the exposure. The Olympic Committee was very stodgy. You know, I said, listen, you want me to be in a delivery room for 30 hours. Let me run in a marathon and win a gold medal. And you could hear a pin drop in the room. Like, they're like, who is this blonde woman in the back of the room? Like, it's like, okay, she makes sense. But there were other women that were working on it too, like Catherine Switzer. And I was one of many. I was probably one of the loudest ones, but you know, we ended up being successful. A lot of people helped us, but by that time I hadn't been competing. And I'm like, okay, so who's going to be the one that does this? Enter Joan Benoit. Now, Joan Benoit, I ran the Boston Marathon in 1978. My coach and everybody else said, we want you to train to go back and win it in 1979. And I thought, okay, because I was in the top 12. I mean, I was ranked like 36th and I already moved up. I'm like, okay, I can do it. You know, I thought, okay, I can do it. But you have to have the time to train. And that's the tricky part. So the Pepsi program took off like a shot. And my training, of course, suffered. And then I did as well as I could. I was still winning races. But once the Olympics got canceled, I mean, you can't live on air. And you know, you're putting your body through a lot. You need to have, you know, we didn't have doctors and coaching, and we had like, you know, we're trying to figure it out. So I didn't want to continue to put myself through it unless I had, you know, the money and the people around me to help me through it. So anyway, she ended up winning the Boston Marathon in 1979. And in 1980, when I was, and I can't the dates, we were sitting at a dinner for the Women's Sports Foundation. Was it 1982? She sat next to me. She had just set the American world record, and nobody knew anything. Nobody talked about it. It wasn't written up. Nobody cared. Nobody did this. She was crying. She was like, nobody cares. I'm not going to bother. I said, listen to me. We're going to get the women's marathon in and you're going to win it. And she looked at me like I had 5 eyes. I said, listen, are you going to, when you retire, you're going to go home and have a baby? And she said, yes. I said, well, let me say something to you. Winning this marathon is going to be easier than having that baby. You can either go home to Maine and be a rich mother or go home to Maine and be a poor mother. It's up to you. And she looked at me like I was crazy. And then she goes, okay. I said, I will be there to help you, whatever I can do, because we knew all the other athletes. A lot of it is kind of mind games. You know, a lot of athleticism is psychological. Like when I was training in Boulder, when I would come down to run in a race, people would look at me with fear in their eyes because they said she just came from the top of the mountain. She's just going to kill us. You know what I mean? So, I mean, a lot of it's psychological. So.
Wow, what a story.
I mean, it's just like the one thing led into another. And then once I told her she could do it, we had to figure out how, because you have to be a little bit quiet about what you do, because there was so much money involved. I mean, the person that won that race was going to be set for life. And of course, the people from Norway, they wanted to win, and that's a whole nother movie. But she was an amazing person, and the rest became history. And, you know, once I wrote the book, what blew me away was years after Joan Benoit won that race, I went and checked my race number. Now, the race number I had when I was running in the Boston Marathon, this blew me away. This blew me away when I wrote the book, because It was not, my number was 36. I went back and looked at the footage, and this was 10 years after she won. I never paid any attention to her race number. And I went back and I go, oh my God, her race number was 361. I mean, it just was like, this was meant to be. And the thing was, like, once I hooked into this thing, I couldn't let it go. Because I knew had I been given the chance, I could have won. But if I wasn't given the chance, I wanted somebody, she was 4 years younger than me. So I looked at her like a sister. I wanted her to have the benefit that I didn't have because I knew it was possible. So when she won, I felt like I was winning myself. It was like we all won. That's how I saw it.
Yeah, you transfer the torch to her.
That's how I felt.
Yeah,
I didn't walk away from the sport because I had put so much into it. And I said, this will be a great moment. And it's, today they put, in the Olympics, they've been like all these, a lot of these sports aren't even, to me, sports. It's like, skateboarding. All right, it's a skate. I mean, running a marathon is a grueling thing. And running a marathon in the times these men and women participate in is it's a mind-boggling thing, and it's a very difficult thing to watch. It's boring to watch, but when you're in it, it's a very interesting. It's like anything. It's like if you watch golf, you could say that's boring too. So the people that are into it, and the people that aren't. And it was a big part of my life, and it changed a lot of things of the way I looked at things. And I said, well, the marathon is a warm-up for the greatest event, which I think is birth. And that's really the thread, shall I say, of how I came up with this, because I guess people go through a lot of things in life where they to become enlightened, whether you're a Buddha or you go on a vision quest as an American Indian. I would say running was like a vision quest for me. And I came back with knowledge that I would have never had I not gone on that journey. And that's the reason I wrote the book. I want other people to understand who they are at their core. And I want women to understand the amazing nature of who they are. But I really wrote it so men would kind of respect women more for who they are instead of how they look at them. Like, we all want to be thought of as pretty and this and that. And I just got so irritated. I go, we're so much more than this. And it seems kind of cheesy in a way that we're not given that kind of kudo. Whether privately or in work, or so in another way of looking at it was I wasn't getting paid equally at work. So I said, listen, I'm the greatest athlete you're ever going to meet. So if you want me to have your baby, I'll take the 20 million up front and, we'll call it even. I said, I can throw a football. And ironically, we started Nike, which means goddess of victory. We only had men's shoes. They didn't even have women's shoes. And, when Joan Benoit won that event, I mean, that set Nike on their $90 billion, trajectory. And most of the money that they give to all the male sports. And so as we fast forward to this Olympics in Japan, you see the women of this Olympics, like an Allison Felix, who is a mother. She was chastised by Nike. Oh, you're not running as fast. Well, she just had a baby. She came back even stronger. And if you look at my videotape, which I shot in 1984, I have video of this. I said this 40 years ago, Chris, 40. And I'm watching Allison Felix now. She's a mom. She's chastised by Nike. So she leaves Nike, which means goddess of victory. She goes on to win 11 gold medals, surpassing any male. And she's a mom. So I applaud her, because it's a little bit insulting to be at this stage in history, to be treating the women you're not on top of your game every 2 seconds. It's a lot of like, even when I was being coached, men don't know how to coach women. It's a different dynamic in coaching a woman. You have to be a little bit more compassionate. I think it's better when you do it with love and understanding instead of with brute force. Like I'd see all these coaches and I go, these people are horrible, the way they would talk to their athletes, whether they were male or female. There's a lot of misunderstandings, I think, in communication that we do as human beings, which I think borderlines on foolish, immature, and completely backward. And I saw a lot of that in the sports world.
A lot of politics too. Yeah.
And politics too. So there's a finesse. Yeah, there's a finesse to treating someone as a human being, not as a human object. And I think because we are a culture, and I will say this about America, we love to win. Don't get me wrong. I love winning. But the way you win, how you win, I think are equally as important. We were raised to be extremely honest. There were a lot of people cheating and doing stuff, and I would see it and I'd blow it off, and they'd all come off to me and they'd say, don't say anything. I wasn't going to tattletale on people, but people were doing what they needed to do to survive, to be athletes. A lot of them were taking under the table money, and stuff like that. I didn't care, but I didn't want to do anything that would have jeopardized my opportunities, because I didn't want somebody to come back and say, oh, you took $20. It's like people can be really weird. That's all I gotta say. But
I get that idea, by the way, the world's greatest achievement, birth.
Now, the idea came from the fact that when I was training and I saw that my body had this incredible amount of endurance, like, your body has, it's like a bicycle with different gears, and you don't know what the gears are till you test them. So when you're training, you're testing the gears in your body, and you're pushing yourself. You're pushing yourself. You're pushing yourself. I had no other reason to do it except to have a goal. Nobody told me when I was 12, when you're in a delivery room, it might be 30 hours. Nobody says when you're a little girl, one day when you have a baby, your body is going to be expected to have this incredible endurance to give birth to a child. There's no class that you go to. So I found it very shocking as a then 22-year-old runner and a female who had never had a child, that A, this was not explained to me, and B, that I was expected to go through this, and C, while I was running, you got to remember, you're not getting a what do they call that thing that they are shooting your back, an epidural. While you're training for the Olympics, you're going through that pain without any, medicine. And I wanted to test myself as a person, as a woman, and as an athlete to see how I went through that pain and how I could push myself through that pain, because I felt that I wanted to understand how to not be afraid of that pain should I one day want to have a baby. Because then I was 22. I thought one day I'm going to have a baby. I need to acquaint myself with this kind of pain. That's what I was thinking. So while I'm acquainting myself with this kind of pain, in my head, I'm thinking of all the women all over the world right that minute who are laying in a delivery room giving birth. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, now that's something else. I just found it like so remarkable, but I also felt very awe-inspired, and I also felt connected to my mom then, saying, wow, she went through this to give birth to me. What an amazing thing to do for someone. You, like in the Bible, you lay down your life for someone else. So the two places you lay down your life is when you give birth or when you give your life. And I thought it was so much more profound than I was ever led to think, because I didn't think much about it. You know what I mean?
I'd say the expression of it, you get a lovely medallion, you designed that medallion, and also a pendant, you have on your neck, I guess, right?
Right. And I designed it as a result of running the marathon, because when you win a marathon, they put the laurel wreath on your head. And I thought that was poetic in terms of the woman who is to me the champion upon giving birth to the miracle, which is her baby. So that in and of itself is the reward. But I also felt it was such a, I don't know, spiritual, out of body experience that it deserves something special.
Yeah, it's a lovely gift for mothers
And I
out
wanted,
there then.
yeah, it wasn't even about so much the gift. It was about the message. I want women to know who they are. See, this is what I felt. I felt I had been shortchanged by my society I grew up in. Nobody told me this is who I was. Everybody told me what to do. Those are two very different ways of living life. If you're constantly being told what to do and you don't question why you do it, and you don't really know enough about who you really are, that gives other people the opportunity to put you in a cubby hole of something that may not be you. And I didn't even realize that that's what I was doing at the time, because I was just so unhappy. I was just so frustrated. I was just so, like, I felt like my insides were being crushed by a world that did not see me for the me I was on the inside. So I took my life and I took the inside and turned it outside. And, it freaked out a lot of people. Especially my brother, if I could beat him in a race. He didn't like it. And I didn't even care. My mother goes, "Oh, you're too strong. Oh, nobody's going to want to date you. Oh, you're going to be alone." I go, "Well, I don't care." And, at the end of these races, you'd be running in a race. And at the end, the worst thing a guy could do is feel like a woman beat him in a race. I mean, this whole cultural thing about men and women and who's in charge, it just is right in your face when you're doing this. And right at the end of coming up to a finish line, I hear all these guys trying to pass me at the end because nobody wanted to say they got beat by a woman. So at the end of the race, I would turn around and say, "Listen, you guys beat us most of the time anyway. Once in a while, it's okay."
Be
a little gracious. Just once in a while, it's kind of fun. That's all.
What do you value in most people?
Honesty, integrity, vision, loyalty. These are things money cannot buy. I've had a lot of money and I've been broke.
You ever have a mentor?
That's a really good question. Do I have a mentor? I think there are people I have picked up pieces from, but I see myself in a completely different category unto myself, because my biggest thing in life is I do not wish to be like anybody else. I wish to be uniquely me. I wish to be uniquely who God made me to be. And I do not wish to be a copy of another human being. And I think a lot of that came from everybody always saying, "You're just like this person." And I said, "I'm not. No, I'm not." That would be like putting sandpaper on my arm. It's like, I want to be something that is completely original.
What inspires your creativity?
It's so interesting that you ask me that question. I think I'm the most profoundly inspired by true love. And true love to me is a very deep thing. I think we all live at a variety of different levels of being. Superficial, spiritual. There's so many levels to being a person. And sometimes you dive deep and sometimes you're super. But I also think because I've had so many different experiences at all levels of the map, emotionally, physically, financially, I've been through so many things in my life. So I draw from all of those things and all of those people. Even if I didn't want to go through these things, they're embedded in me. They're part of my soul. And it made me different, I would say, for the most part, in a better way, because I look at life through the lens, I hope, more of spirituality. And oftentimes the things that happened to me that were the absolute worst, and I mean horrendous, I learned how to get back up and get myself out of those things. And I'm extremely proud of myself for that. But I also learned to be compassionate to other people, which can be a curse if you're too compassionate. You don't want to be somebody's crutch, and you don't want somebody to be yours either. So I think love, and I say that like, I wrote that movie about the dogs. I mean, I had a horrific experience with a deal I was working on, and I ended up losing everything and ended up with a Cocker Spaniel. And then when I have these two now, the first was black one, and I named her Nike because she was my baby girl. And I considered her my little goddess of victory, because at that time I lost everything, which is a whole nother book and a whole nother movie. But, out of that sprung something funny, which turned into something I wrote. And I don't know.
You wrote that screenplay, which is can we tell it? Paparazzi, right?
It's called Paparazzi Squad. It's a fun, because I had a lot of great experiences. I got to go to London. I got to meet Lady Diana, and when I met Lady Diana, I had already been through a dissolution of a marriage to a guy a lot like Prince Charles. I had already been through my Olympics, which had been canceled. I had been through so much by the time I met her. And when I met her, the hair on my arm stood up, because I knew what was going to happen. I knew she was going to go through what I went through, and it just killed me. And I happened to be there for her. I was there to go to Wimbledon to see a friend play at tennis. It was fantastic. I got to go to the NBC tent and meet, all the famous players, and it was fabulous. And then everybody said, "Are you going to stay for the wedding?" And I said, "What wedding?" I wasn't paying any attention to the wedding. I was thinking about the Olympics that had been canceled and how I ended up at Wimbledon in 1981. That's what I was thinking about. And they said, "Oh no, the wedding of the century," and this and that. So, in those days, you could walk around and see people. You could practically touch them. There wasn't all this security. And, I went to all the horse races, and she was there with Charles. I mean, she was within about 10 feet of me. I mean, people weren't weird and gropey and, all that stuff. So, the wedding went off, and I was there, and, and then I came home, and of course, I followed her life, and I felt very saddened by what happened with her, because again, likening back, you say, my book brings you back to your childhood. At 19, you're still a child, but you don't know it. She got married at 19. I got married a little over that age. And when you meet somebody that's that overpowering and seems like they know what they're doing, you say yes to something that you think you're going to be loved by that person. When you're that young, you don't understand all the other intricacies of relationships, nor do you understand all the things that men do, because I didn't really know half the games. I mean, once I left my husband and I saw all the things that went on, I go, I think I'm going to stay single for the rest of my life. I can't watch what goes on, because it's painful if you're the wife, and I'm not a perfect person, but you got to remember the 80s and the 90s in America. I mean, I worked in some places where all this stuff that you're finding out about, it went on, and it was sad, and it was toxic, and you're still trying to make a living, and you're still trying to get paid, and you don't want to go somewhere where you're going to be harassed and all these crazy things that go on. So, I mean, you draw from your experiences in life. So meeting her and having her die by being chased by a paparazzo, I had written a little story about my dog because everybody was taking pictures of their dog. And I said, I'm going to write a story for her and I'm going to call it this. And so, Chris, I hang around a lot of writers. Most of them are men. And they said, well, you'll never be able to write that script. Okay, so then I'm going to write it.
Yeah, of course.
And then I'm going to write it. And I wrote it in 3 days. It came out in 3 days. I sat at the typewriter. I didn't move. I was like a sphinx. I sat there. It came out. And when I read it, I cried. I said, this is so cute. And, it got my mind off of all the other things. I mean, everybody has highs and lows in life. Things go up and down. But, you got to remember, I came from a very traditional family. And what I ended up doing with my life was so untraditional. My family was like, my mother didn't know whether to be horrified or happy. I mean, she was like, what are we going to do with her?
Oh, that
Why don't you just get married and have a couple of children?
That screenplay is funny, it's lovely, fantastic for kids. I think Disney or Universal will fight over them. Should, at least anyway.
Well, this is it's a crazy world, Hollywood. I lived out there. It's a fine line. You want a good shake and you want good people. And I'm working on, attracting the right team to the project and getting the story done. They wanted me to go to China. I said, I'm not going to move to China. And this was a couple of years ago. I'm not going to China. So I didn't. So, I mean, I have high hopes for this little project. And I do have dogs. I never ended up having children. I'm still single. I just ended up being a bit of a workaholic. And, I feel I'm here for something that has nothing to do with me. I feel like I'm doing something that's greater. And even when I was running, I wasn't just running for myself. I was running for all the people, especially women, who are never going to be seen for what they truly do. I was trying to draw a correlation between me running and winning a gold medal and a woman being in a delivery room having a baby, because in the world I grew up in, we were being pulled in so many directions. Go to work, have a baby and go to work. I said, I don't know if I could do all this, because you got to remember also, I had a mother who was sick in a hospital. So, I mean, I wasn't going to have the backup. So I didn't see how I could juggle like some of these women do. I just didn't know if I could. So I didn't. And then I ended up with the dogs, and they're my children.
What is your greatest satisfaction?
My greatest satisfaction is being a part of getting a woman to win the first women's Olympic marathon. I think that moment in my life was something so surreal and so hard. I'm so proud of it because the time still stands. The American record still stands. That gold medal will be there for forever. And, there's very few things in life. Like, I think what I wanted to do after my, when you get married, it's supposed to be forever. I think when my marriage was not forever, I thought in the back of my head, I want to do something that's going to last beyond me. And that was my real deep down inside motivation. And if I don't have children, I think it's ironic. I wanted to win a gold medal, and now I'm giving gold medals. And to be honest with you, I enjoy giving them. I love to see the face of a woman when she gets this, because if you could see what they look like when they get it, it's that instant you understand, they understand. It's a woman understanding the recognition that it's an appreciation of who they are as a person and as a woman. And I like that. I like being able to do that.
It's a soul, a word. It is. It's a soul.
And I want to, and not only that, I want to give back to charities with this product. So I have it, in a coin and a necklace, because our veterans are also, they give their lives. And, in the beginning of my book, I write, there's, the faith, the Baha'i faith, they have a quotation in there that mankind is made of a bird's wings. Mankind is got 2 wings. And if the wings are not even, the bird cannot fly. In other words, if men and women are not equal, we're on a careening course going this way. You have to strengthen the two wings. And I think, I don't know if it's getting better or worse. A strong woman to me it's almost like an oxymoron, because we are strong. It's who we are to begin with. And ironically, on the tarmac in New York, before I was leaving to go to London, I got stuck on the tarmac for 9 hours, Chris, in a pouring rainstorm. And I sat next to an obstetrician and we chatted about everything. He said, did you know in a delivery room, if two babies are born, male or female, and they're not born, completely healthy, 9 times out of 10, the boy baby will die and the female will live. And you know why that is? Women have a stronger drive to live because
stronger constitution.
Because we breed the children.
Mhm.
We love our children. We do not want to leave our babies. So that strength is so entrenched in the DNA. And that's what keeps, I'm not saying every woman's like this, but I really believe that's the juice to keep that going. And obviously not every woman's a good mother and not every woman has this experience, but I know that the love between a mother and her child is it's an intense experience. It's an intense love. And, it's just interesting. It's fascinating.
Your biggest mistake?
My biggest mistake is probably allowing other people to affect me emotionally, because I am an emotional, the running thing, you put on this tough front, deep down inside, I'm kind of mushy. So if you allow people into that and then it gets you in a way, it can be a little heartbreaking, I would say, because you can't be tough all the time. It's a little exhausting. So I think it's leveraging those two things and sides of your personality is something that I think I struggle with, whether it's a mistake or not. I think one of my biggest mistakes is trusting my younger brother, but that's another movie. But I trust people if they're my friends or if they're my family, and sometimes those are not the right people for me to trust. And I have found that out the hard way for me.
What keeps you up at night?
You know what? Probably wanting to fall in love, because I think deep down inside, everybody has that thing of in there. And how would I do that with my work? Because when I work, I'm kind of very intense with what I do. And then it doesn't always give me a lot of energy to have a human relationship. And I don't know if I've done that on purpose, maybe, or that the work I choose tends to be so labor intensive that it leaves me kind of not available for having a relationship with someone. So those are things I kind of ponder, but it doesn't keep me up at night. I'm kind of like, if I can balance my life out and be happy with where I am, then everything else will fall into place.
Any regrets?
You could look back and say they were a regret, but I'm so far past it now. I can't even worry about it. As you get older, at the time you're going, I shouldn't have done this and I shouldn't have done that, but you did it. So you got to deal with it. And I've dealt with a lot of.
They become experiences. Yeah.
They become experiences. I shouldn't have trusted this person. I should have gone this way. Life has a way of pushing you forward with your mistakes, with your chin hanging open, with your divorce, with your canceled Olympics. You must move forward. That is the only way. And then the thing about being creative, I like to learn new things, and I'm extremely ambitious. So by being ambitious, I'm the kind of person, well, if this didn't work out, I'm going to try that. I'm better if I keep myself motivated. I'm a good motivator. I'm an incredible coach. I'm going to tell, I'm really a good coach. But sometimes I've never found anybody to coach me. But I can see things from a distance other people don't see. But I have a vision inside of my soul of something I would like to accomplish. And it's like a burning fire. It's in there. And I got things to do. And that gets me up and it keeps me going. And I feel pretty good right now. I'm healthy, thank God. I'm not sick. I'm not in the best shape of my life, but I called it the COVID buffet. It wasn't the virus. We had the COVID buffet. The dogs had that too. We'll all have to get on the treadmill.
Are you working on anything at the present?
I'm working on paparazzi, and I'm working on the medals and the coins, and those are my two passions: media and my product line. And one of the reasons I wanted to get into the media world is because I felt it wasn't doing justice to women. I mean, obviously, Nowhere to Run, the book, I wanted to make into a movie. That was the original script. And then I veered off because that's a serious thing and got into the dog thing, which is fun. And, about 10 years ago, I met a lot of women and they go, we have to go to the movie theater just to screen the movie because our kids are having nightmares. I'm going, that's so sad. Because I think about how innocently we grew up, going back to the beginning of this interview. You could watch a movie or a TV show and you weren't going to have nightmares. The kinds of culture we have created, not just for children, but for human beings, the toxicity of what we think, the toxicity of what we eat affects the health and happiness of our life. And I'm so hyper aware of that because when you train for the Olympics, you're so purified. You don't watch, you don't do anything. You're in a bubble. It's so fantastic. You don't know any of these problems. And then when you come out of it, you go, oh my God, let me go back into this bubble because this is like a problem. Because when you're training for the Olympics, you're very, very purified. You're in like this almost sacred space. And I once said, if everybody on the planet was training for the Olympics, there would be no war. You'd be too tired. There'd be no war. And as you can see, what we're going through as a country and as a culture and as a world, it makes me sad, but it makes me want to be a brighter light. I think the thing that you can do with your own life, we each have this capacity, is to try to be a light. And I think that's what I think my journey is, to be a light.
Yeah, you're talking about love before, and you could find your love in your characters when you write, in everything that you create. Actually, it's love as well, and
it is love because I mean the thing is, deep down inside, you don't want to become cold, cruel, and cynical, which is an easy thing to become. You want to be able to open your heart to the full expression of who you are. And I think running, I was so in love with running because I had a marriage where I couldn't be, my husband, we're having a relationship. So I fell in love with that. And that broadened my concept of love. And then you have different experiences in your life. I wish our work world was, I look at the way we work and I go, God, it's so sterile. I like injecting fun, humor, enthusiasm. I worked in so many places and these people, they can't even crack a smile. I mean, I think if you love people and if you love your environment, you will get more out of human beings. It's the same with our culture right now. Everybody's so draconian. We need a pep talk. I think deep down inside, I'm a cheerleader. I was always a cheerleader. I go, I think we need a cheerleader for America. Everyone needs to get up and start feeling like, my God, this is like we're being swamped with this craziness that's going on. And, I'm not going to cure everything, but, as one person, maybe you brighten up somebody else's life and if your work can reach people, I think when I wrote Paparazzi, I thought, what are these kids going to be walking into as a society? Because it was after 9/11. What are they going to be seeing? How are they going to be growing up? Because my life was so completely different, and I wanted to create something that would be magical for children. And that's why I wrote it.
Best piece of advice you can give to young people?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know. I was asked the same thing.
You know what? We're living in a time where you don't want people to lose hope. I don't care who you are. I don't care what age you are. So keeping yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually afloat. I would say try to distract yourself and not watch as much news. I still think a lot of things we don't know or understand. Take your vitamins, get your rest, try to have some fun. It's kind of the basics. I remember growing up as a kid, my parents wouldn't let us watch things if they thought they were above our level. And I'm glad for that. We were outside playing. Fresh air and sunshine cure a lot of things. I also think good hygiene. I think the one thing about this virus, maybe people will have better hygiene habits. Good hygiene is good for your mental health. And that they should know that all throughout history, the world has gone through things like this. Nothing lasts forever. And there's always something good that can come out of even the worst thing.
Oh, that's wonderful. We are approaching the September 11, and for that, some while ago, you wrote a poem, "The Lady in the Night," and I'd like you, if you would, to read it to all of us. And I'm gonna put it on the screen so it'd be easier for you.
Thank you so much, Chris. And again, when you look at my medal and you look at the Statue of Liberty, we grew up with the Statue of Liberty being in New York, and we went up there, we did all those tourist things, and we took the boat there and this and that. And that's where my grandfather landed on Ellis Island. All my grandparents. She has a crown on her head. So in many ways, the crown on the medallion is also symbolic of Lady Liberty in my thought process. So I do love writing poetry. And when I wrote that poem, because I'm a native New Yorker and because I'm a female, I just thought it was so, and 40 people from 9/11 died from my hometown and people who I knew personally. So it was a very tragic experience to go through for New Yorkers particularly. But I just wrote that poem because I just really felt like, man, what does that represent? She didn't get hit by a plane. She, the woman, is still standing. They hit the two big buildings. I thought that was kind of profound. So
yeah, it's an amazing piece, and I'll put it on the screen for you if you would like to read it.
And this is for all the people who, I wrote it actually for all the people who perished on that day. Do it again.
I tell you, if you go to your profile on the Orthopedia.
Oh, Orthopedia.
Yeah.
I know. I could do it right there. Can I pull that up on my own screen here on my computer?
Sure, absolutely.
Oh, okay. Oh, for all my fellow New Yorkers and Americans, am I out of your lens or am I on here?
Oh, you're right in there. Wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The Lady in the Night. She stands all alone in the darkness of night, through rain, wind, and snow, a remarkable sight. On a river that separates city from nation, a crown on her head with a torch, golden bright, giving strangers from each nation new hope and delight. She stands for freedom, truth, promise, and more. Of America the beautiful, she's the opening door. The tattered and torn have all called on her name, traveled thousands of miles before her they came, each with a vision and dream to fulfill, each with persistence and a God-given will. She's watched as they came in day and in night, in peace and in wartime. What a magnificent sight. She's protected the shores of each native and more, given hope to the stranger and help to the poor. She's been the mother, the queen, the woman of all, standing stately and beautiful. Her watch is God's call. It's a woman, you see, God has put in her place to stamp out despair with love and hope to replace. A woman, a mother, sent to protect each and every one, the young and the old, a song of freedom to be sung. America, the beautiful, the strong, and the brave, despite guns, bombs, and destruction, our lives she must save. A sister, a mother, a grandmother, and more, the person to keep us safe inside freedom's door. She stands like the lioness in front of her cave, protecting her cubs. Their lives she must save. With the years and upheavals of presidents and kings, she holds to our dreams and lets freedom ring. It rings louder and louder with each blow we take, with each bomb that bursts, each life that's at stake. Without saying a word, she lets the world know we are America, the free, the proud, and the bold. Despite the fact we are mortal man, she gives us God's grace to fight demons again and again. She holds her head high with dignity and grace, never sleeps on her watch of this magnificent place. But she worries, as all good mothers do, though we have not done our part to keep the peace too. She sees the sins of the hearts of women and men, and fights and lights that torch in the night to guide us again. She wants us to return to a country of peace, of unity and love. Brotherly strife must cease. She wants to remind us that freedom has a cost, that we must be united together or all will be lost. So we must cling to the hem of her robe in this life, as she keeps our way lit through the darkest of night. For she will not let us lose sight of what was meant to be. That's why she's been called Lady Liberty.
Lynn, you're an amazing lady with powerful character, very noble heart, and looking to see you very, very soon again.
Thank you for the interview. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you for your valuable time, and to our viewers from all over the world watching this program. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.